Hi, folks. Welcome back. I'm Dennis Vitoza, also known as Def Noodles, and today we're going to be talking about The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's adaptation of Homer's epic poem. Now, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding this movie, and we've covered much of it on this channel. Some of that controversy involves Christopher Nolan's casting decisions, most notably casting Elliot Page as a Greek warrior and Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. Other controversies have centered around the film's art direction, some of the dialogue and public statements made by cast members that pushed a far-left pro-gay ideology. We've also examined some of Elliot Page's own comments in previous videos, but with all that being said, none of those controversies compare to just how absolutely awful this movie actually looks. See, over the last 24 hours, several leaked clips from The Odyssey have been circulating on X. Most of them have been taken down almost immediately, but many people were still able to catch a glimpse of what this film is shaping up to look like before the clips disappeared. So, if you're thinking about buying a ticket for this ride, these leaks may give you a preview of what to expect. Anyway, one of the first clips to leak features Elliot Page in what is supposed to be a great feat of heroism. Here it is. Now, it will come as no surprise to anyone who's been following the discourse surrounding this movie that the scene we just watched is almost a shot-for-shot remake of a popular AI parody that has been making the rounds online for the last month and a half, ever since it was announced that Elliot Page had been cast in The Odyssey. The similarities are striking, and it's hard not to notice just how closely the leaked footage resembles the parody. So, that we can see exactly what I'm talking about and have the full context for the comparison, here is the AI parody that was originally uploaded to X by Dr. Clown PhD. Now, you may recognize the scene used in that parody. It's from Troy. In this particular AI parody, Elliot Page is substituting Brad Pitt as Achilles. The parody ended up going massively viral, racking up 16 million views, and it inspired several others built around the same concept, placing Elliot Page into iconic male heroic roles, only to have those characters played by Elliot get absolutely torpedoed out of existence at the very first very light challenge. And that became the joke, and it's why these videos spread so quickly across social media. Now, what's surprising to me is that in The Odyssey, Elliot's character ultimately dies in a way that's remarkably similar in spirit to this parody. Elliot is struck by arrows and eventually killed by a lance, ending up pinned against a Trojan horse that, in the film, under the role of Sinan, helped bring it into the city. Needless to say, when you watch the entire sequence, it's hard not to see the similarities, from the goofy way Elliot runs, to charging an entire group of men alone, to being taken out almost immediately with virtually no effort, not even managing to dodge a single lance. It ends up feeling far closer to the parody than to the kind of heroic moment most filmmakers presumably want to create. Now, compare the dynamics we just described to what we saw in the original Troy. What makes that scene in Troy so memorable is that you have this massive warrior, a true Goliath, hurl a spear at Achilles. Achilles effortlessly dodges it, closes the distance, and proceeds to defeat him. It's an incredible display of athleticism, confidence, and heroism. That's what makes the scene iconic. What we're witnessing instead with Elliot, not only in the AI parody, but now seemingly in Nolan's film, is a complete absence of that same sense of heroism. Now, even beyond the action itself, Elliot's performance simply doesn't come across as believable to me. You can tell Elliot is trying to lower her voice, but it still doesn't sound convincing at all. Throughout the entire sequence, Elliot looks like a woman to me, moves like a woman, and even the manner of dying reads as feminine. I just don't see a man on screen. I'm sorry. I genuinely wish there were a way to satisfy that desire for Elliot, to fundamentally be able to alter her essence, but that's simply not the truth of the human condition. We're all dealt the cards we're dealt, and we have to live with them. We should all thank God we were dealt cards to begin with, because we could just as easily have never existed at all. All of that being said, as the release of The Odyssey approaches, Elliot Page has responded to what she describes as a transphobic backlash over false rumors that she had been cast as Achilles in the film. Here's what she had to say.
What's interesting is the bigger a film gets, the more people poke at it and look at things that aren't really true. In this film, it had a lot to do with the casting. Is that something, that noise, has that ever bothered you?
No, because I feel, so much of that noise has been based in utter, bigotry, to say it frankly. So it's just not something I think is worth it.
Now, what's remarkable is that you can even hear Elliot's voice here, and it sounds different from how it sounded in the clip we just watched from the movie. In the Odyssey, Elliot was clearly trying to lower her voice. Here, though, the voice sounds much more of like a bush lesbian, a masculine woman. I think that's ironic because it highlights what I see as the limitations of transitioning in Elliot Page's case. No matter how much someone attempts to alter certain characteristics, there are aspects of a person's biology and presentation that simply remain because you can't alter biology. Now, I don't want to spend too much time attacking Elliot's identity. Elliot gets to do whatever the hell she wants to do with her life. Those are personal choices, and those choices were made. Obviously, I disagree with them, but I also have a great deal of empathy and compassion because, as I've said in previous videos, I think it's pretty evident that Elliot has gone through a tremendous amount of hurt and trauma, and I genuinely do wish Elliot the best. That said, I think the bigger issue here isn't Elliot Page, it's the director and the people making these sorts of casting decisions. They're the ones deciding who plays which role, and I think it's unfortunate that so many Hollywood directors have been willing to make what I see as outrageous casting choices, putting people who are clearly struggling into the crosshairs of the culture war, seemingly for little more than the extra publicity and attention the controversy generates. In many ways, it feels like the studios benefit from the outrage while the actors themselves become the target. Now, that being said, Elliot Page's scene wasn't the only one that leaked. Another leaked scene involves the film's other controversial casting decision, Lupita Nyong'o as Helen of Troy. Here's a clip.
Good part of her heart had gone.
Horrific casting decision, in my opinion, from top to bottom. I mean, the entire aesthetic of this movie just looks awful. The color correction is distracting, and I'm not even sure whether it was intentional, but it even appears to alter Lupita Nyong'o's skin tone. She looks considerably darker in the movie than she does in real life, and I'm putting up a photo of her here so you can see what I mean. And don't get me wrong, Lupita is dark-skinned, that's obvious, but the way this movie has been color graded makes her appear even darker than she actually is. It's almost as though the filmmakers knew the outrage this casting decision would generate and leaned into it by exaggerating her appearance even further. If that's truly the case, I think it's exploitative. As I mentioned before, both Lupita Nyong'o and Elliot Page have found themselves in the crosshairs of the culture war. So to intentionally lean into that outrage for extra attention, and look, I understand the marketing logic behind it. You double down, you generate headlines, you get people talking, but at the same time, it almost feels like you're deliberately throwing these actors to the wolves for the sake of free publicity. And to take it a step further, the acting itself doesn't help either. It all comes across as incredibly phony and melodramatic. Nothing about the scenes we watched feels authentic to me. I've enjoyed Christopher Nolan's movies in the past. I loved The Dark Knight when it first came out, but over the years, the more I've revisited it, the less I've connected with it. At this point, I sometimes find myself wondering why I even liked that movie so much in the first place. Maybe that's a reflection of how my own tastes have changed. Maybe audiences have changed. I don't know, but I watched Rocky yesterday after seeing the I Am Rocky trailer, and that movie reminded me what timeless filmmaking looks like. The movies that endure, at least for me, are the ones that have heart. They feature genuine character transformation, perseverance, love, sacrifice, and some kind of emotional or romantic balance as the protagonist struggles through extraordinary circumstances. Those are the stories that stay with people for decades. Now, all that being said, I've seen reviews of The Odyssey go both ways. Some people are saying it's incredible, that the final third of the movie is some of the greatest filmmaking ever put on screen, and honestly, I can believe that could be true, especially considering Nolan's track record. Inception, for example, has one of the best endings I can remember in modern filmmaking history. So I'm not ruling out the possibility that parts of this movie are genuinely excellent, but from what we've seen so far, it's hard to believe. But if all that controversy weren't enough, it seems that Lupita Nyong'o, much like Elliot Page, has decided to keep stoking the flames while promoting the film. This is what she's been saying in interviews.
All these women that each is so vital to what happens.
The women run this.
Yeah, when you think about the Odyssey and when you think about the Trojan War, what comes to mind first is obviously the men who went to the war. But then there are so many incredible women in the story, and Chris chooses to linger with them and tell the story also from their perspective. And so it just gives you a whole new appreciation of the epic that is the Odyssey.
I don't really understand what's going on here. Just a week ago, Lupita Nyong'o was complaining that women weren't getting enough screen time. Now she's on here saying, no, women get plenty of screen time. In fact, they're the ones driving the plot. So which is it? Make up your mind. Is there a consistent message here? Are women being marginalized and denied opportunities, or are they the central force driving these stories? Because those are two very different claims, and you can't have it both ways. At some point, there has to be a coherent worldview behind what you're saying. That's just how reality works. Anyway, that's not the only message Lupita has been putting out while promoting the movie. Here's another one.
The most iconic character I played is Helena Troy, and she's known for her beauty.
Yeah.
But my big question is, who's the woman behind the beauty? You know, because when that's all you're known for, that must be burdensome.
Yeah, that's kind of like that must be frustrating for her amongst many other things
going on than just her beauty, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So now we're back to the narrative that Helen of Troy is a victim because she's only known for her beauty. Which is it? Are women running everything, or are they driving the plot? Or are they victims of their own beauty, perpetually subjected to men? I'd genuinely like to know, because those are fundamentally different arguments. You can't keep switching between them depending on the interviewer you're sitting across from. Now, here's the reality, because in my opinion, these people don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're just saying things. That's really all it is. They go from interview to interview, agreeing with whatever framework the interviewer is presenting, and they simply reflect back the assumptions and biases they're being fed. I've watched hundreds of these interviews over the years, unfortunately for me, and they're all a complete brain drain. Every time I sit through one of these, I feel like I lose a few IQ points. But one thing I've increasingly noticed is that many of these actors don't appear to have deeply developed views of their own. They're just vessels. Alfred Hitchcock once referred to actors as cattle. And while that's obviously a provocative way of putting it, I understand what he meant. Many of them go into these interviews and simply mirror whatever perspective the journalist wants them to adopt. And honestly, that explanation makes a lot more sense to me than believing these actors are somehow profound intellectuals. See, just a few days ago, in one of the interviews we covered, Lupita Nyong'o didn't even know that Athena is one of the primary forces driving the plot of the Odyssey. At the same time, she was complaining that women weren't given enough representation in the story. Then in another interview, she's saying women are actually driving the plot. That's exactly my point. With one interviewer, it's women are powerful and running everything. With another, it's women are victims. That's why they keep making themselves look foolish. They're simply echoing the person asking the questions. Now, look, with Elliot Page, it's a little different. I do think Elliot is genuinely ideologically captured and sincerely believes the talking points she spouts. Rather than merely reflecting the interviewer, Elliot seems to have fully internalized what I see as a destructive gay ideology and now repeats it from that perspective. We've talked extensively about the social dynamics surrounding all of this in previous videos, so I won't really rehash everything here, but I do think that distinction is worth pointing out. Now, the broader lesson in all this is don't look to actors to form your own opinions about the world. Many of them are simply vessels. They're professional pretenders. They're professional liars. That's literally their job. Remember when you were a kid and you played pretend? That's what actors do for a living. And I was just reminded of that while watching the I Am Rocky trailer. There's a great exchange where Sylvester Stallone is talking to Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed in the original Rocky movie. Stallone says he hired Weathers because he could box, and Weathers jokingly replies, "No, I lied. That's what actors do. We lie." It's a funny moment, but there's a deeper truth buried in that joke. Now, once you start putting all of these pieces together, you begin to understand how we've arrived at this point culturally. It's symbolic of a society that has elevated people who often know very little outside their profession, who represent very little beyond their careers, and who frequently function as blank slates for whatever ideas are fed to them. Yet we've elevated them into moral arbiters and political commentators whose opinions are treated as though they carry enormous weight. That's how you end up with a situation where Joe Biden, despite widespread concerns about his cognitive abilities, remains the Democrat nominee for president until pressure mounts, and then George Clooney, an actor, writes an op-ed after which Kamala Harris is effectively anointed. the presidential nomination by the Democrat Party. And that's why I really believe that we should decouple ourselves from Hollywood politically. Hollywood can still be an incredibly important part of American culture. It can continue making movies, telling stories, and entertaining audiences around the world. But when it comes to politics and shaping our public discourse, I think we need far more distance, because not only do you see everything we've just talked about, you also end up with some of the cringiest promotional campaigns imaginable. Case in point, this video promoting the Odyssey.
Odysseus,
Telemachus,
Penelope,
Antinous, Odysseus,
Athena,
Telemachus,
Calypso, Penelope,
Menelaus,
And Helen of Troy.
Odyssey,
Odyssey,
after the Iliad,
Hidden the horse,
won the war,
yeah, I'm serious,
Odyssey,
Odyssey.
Itching for Ithaca,
get past the
Peloponnesian Peninsula,
Odyssey,
Odyssey,
Mediterranean,
Psych out a Cyclops,
And crater his cranium.
Circe is
cursing the
Men into bacon bits.
Gotta go,
on the road,
head to where Hades is,
Odysseus,
Athena,
Telemachus,
Calypso.
Penelope,
Menelaus,
And Helen of
we
Troy.
could be Homer,
the way we go over,
the story in 6 feet,
full of hexameter,
Call it whatever.
so long as it's this beat,
sirens on
sirens and
suitors on suitors,
and Zilla,
Charybdis.
don't munch on the moors,
But Helen,
Athena,
are helpful and generous.
help me get home,
to defeat that
Antinous, tell me, oh,
muse of that
hero who's
traveled so far,
far and so
wide
wide,
in his
life came on,
Raveled and
tell me, oh,
muse of that
hero who's
gotta be
tired as hell.
all because of
The Odyssey.
Odysseus,
The Odyssey.
Telemachus,
Penelope,
The Odyssey.
Antinous,
the Odyssey,
Odysseus,
Athena,
Telemachus,
Odyssey.
Penelope,
The Odyssey.
That had to be one of the cringiest things I've seen in a long time. It was completely unnecessary. I understand what they're going for. I get the iambic pentameter. I understand that's the rhythm Homer wrote in, but this is just too much. There's absolutely no reason to present it in this way in the modern day unless your goal is to publicly embarrass your own actors. It feels forced, self-important, and honestly just painful to watch. The fact that I had to sit through that a second time is punishment enough. I watched it once for research, and then I had to watch it again with you all. So I apologize, folks, for putting you through that. But if I had to suffer through it, so do you. More than anything, it gives me major COVID-era Imagine video vibes. It's the same Hollywood energy, that same self-serious performative aesthetic that people overwhelmingly rejected a few years ago. Yet somehow Hollywood seems determined to resurrect it as though nothing was ever learned. They clearly haven't learned the lesson. And at this point, it doesn't seem like they have any intention of learning it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you enjoy this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you think might enjoy it as well. Take care, folks. Peace.